Hey all, today I want to talk about compiling and running your Java apps, but not in the IDE that you're used to. Actually, how does it work at the lowest level? How does it work at the command line? Now, you're probably used to doing this in an integrated development environment. That's what IDE stands for. You probably use something like Eclipse where you type in your code, save the file, maybe even have a larger project, and you click the little green button in the upper left-hand corner and your code runs. Or maybe you're using a more classroom-oriented IDE like JGrasp, in which case you're clicking on the little red person or maybe the little bug to help debug your code. And that seems to compile your code, do a bunch of stuff, and if it doesn't output a bunch of errors on your screen, well, your program is going to run. Well, I want to show you what's actually happening underneath the hood. So we're going to start with what I might call a disintegrated development environment. We're going to go all the way back down to the command line, which might look a little primitive in computerese, but this is really where a lot of professional software engineers spend quite a bit of time, because there's just a lot of power that you have from a command line. I am using what's called a shell, and this shell is called ZSH. There are a number of different shells. There's Bash, ZSH, there's the Microsoft Command Prompt, there's PowerShell. They all have their own little idiosyncrasies and quirks and features and drawbacks, but ZSH is the one that I choose to use on my environment. And so I'm sitting here at a command prompt, and I'm basically in a folder. You might think of that where it says compiling from the command line. That's actually the name of a folder. In fact, I'll show you right here, compiling from the command line. So right now, that folder is empty. There's nothing in it. And if I come over here and say ls, which is to list the number of files, there are no files in it. I can actually, let me show you a few commands from this. I can touch a file that says, hello.txt, and now that file is there. I can say, what's the path to my working directory? And it shows me from my desktop into the folders, the whole folder hierarchy. There's just a number of things that I can do from the command line. I can ask my system what its uptime has been. All kinds of stuff I can do from here. And when you install the Java development environment, you get a few other commands that we're going to play with today. We're going to look at, well, at least two. We're going to look at javac, and if I type javac-version, you'll see I'm using Java 14.0.2. And if I ask what Java version is, say, what's javac versus Java? That's weird. We'll get into that today. There's a few other commands we might take a look at depending on whether I go into this in this video or the next video. But I'm going to write a simple program from scratch. I'm going to use an editor called Vim, which is older than I'm sure most of my audience. Heck, it's probably older than I am in its roots. And so I'm going to start with a file called greet.java. I'm now looking at an empty file. So I'm just going to type a little bit of Java here. This should look familiar if you've been in Java for more than a few days. And that probably shouldn't look surprising to anybody. We have a class named greet. We do the public static void main string array args, and we tell it system out println hello world. I'm going to save that. And sure enough, now in that folder, I have my hello text and that greet.java. You know what? I'm going to kill that hello.txt. It's a distraction at this point. So I'm going to drag it to the trash with rm for remove. And now we have this greet.java. I can look at the contents with the cat command. And sure enough, I have my class named greet. So I'm going to say javac, which is the Java compiler, compile that greet.java. And let's see what happens. It was silent. Doesn't look like anything happened. Let's look again. We have a greet.class file. So javac just compiled our .java file and ended up with a .class file. We'll go into that a little bit today. That .class file is what we talked about last time, runs on the Java virtual machine, and that class file can run on any Java virtual machine. It doesn't have to be here on my Mac. It can go over to Windows. It can go over to an old Solaris box, Linux, any flavor of Linux. You could probably even get it to run on an Android phone, provided it had a way to do system out println. But let's run that. How do we run that greet.class file? Well, that's where Java comes in. Java greet. And now notice I don't even need to say greet.class because Java runs class files. That's kind of what it does. And it says hello world. Well, that seems pretty easy, doesn't it? A couple other things. If I show you like just Java, when you install Java, there are a bunch of things that get installed. The Java and Java C commands you just saw, JavaDoc, Java H, Java P, Java Web Start, Java to HTML, a number of different things. I'm going to show you Java P pretty quickly. Let's take a look at Java P for greet. And that seems to just enumerate a few things. There's public greet, which is the default constructor. I didn't actually write that. It's just part of the class. And then my public static void main string. We'll get into that string next time. One more thing, and I don't expect you to understand this. Frankly, I've only used this a few times in my career myself. But you can decompile the Java code. And if you ever get into assembly language, you'll see that this is actually the kind of assembly language that runs on the Java virtual machine. We have our greet constructor, which actually we don't use anywhere. But the public static void main gets a static context. It loads into this thing called C, the string hello world. It invoke virtual, which has to do with a method call. And it has the complete location in Java IO printstream println, the string that we've loaded, and then it returns. Those are the commands that will run from what we wrote in Java. These are the machine level commands that will run anywhere. So every time you compile your app and you see that those .class files get littered all throughout your code, that's what's going on. You click on that little green button or you click on that little red person and it compiles up all that Java code and gives you the class files and then starts running it. And that's it. Let me show you one more thing. I'm going to come over here to our greet.java and I'm going to make a typo. Let's say, oh horror of horrors, I forgot my semicolon. Now I try to Java C, greet.java. Oh, that looks familiar, doesn't it? You don't normally see that inside a window in your IDE. Now it's just dumping out here on the command line that we're missing our semicolon. So no surprises there. Next time I'm going to use this little snippet of code and show you what that string array of arguments is about. Thanks for watching.